Terrifier 2 is way better than Terrifier 3. Okay, so now that I have your attention, hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Killer J. Y'all can call me KJ. Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be giving you guys another movie review, a seasonal movie review. So let me start off by saying that this will be a spoiler-filled review, but I also want to share with y'all that this is more of a personal opinion. I'm not a movie critic. I just love the Terrifier films, and I just wanted to give my personal opinion on the third film since it's hyped up and we are in the season of Christmas. As I'm recording this video and when this video comes out, it is going to be during the Christmas season, and this is a Christmas horror film, so I kind of wanted to put all that together, you know, to feed the algorithm, baby, if you know what I mean. And by the time that I post this video, the movie should be out on streaming services and on physical media, so that gives it enough time for people to actually see it. And if you haven't seen it, stop this video, go watch it, because I am going to be talking about a lot of key points in the movie and a lot of scenes from the movie. So let me start off by saying that I love Terrifier and Art the Clown, and I really don't want to sound like a hipster from 2010, but I discovered Art the Clown before the first Terrifier film came out. Long story short, I love anthology films. I'm a big fan of ABCs of Death. I'm a big fan of the VHS franchise, and back in 2012 I was in like my edgy horror phase, and I was watching like these, like, you know, the typical band films and iceberg films and shit that everybody talks about. And in one of those iceberg videos, a movie called All Hallows Eve came across, like, the title, and obviously, you know, me researching and wanting to watch all these films is one of the first films that I kind of Googled, because it was almost, I think, in the surface or in the second level of the iceberg, and I'm like, oh, cool, it's an anthology film that has like realistic gore, almost like the 1980s. I have no idea what I was actually getting myself into till I actually watched the film. So I sat down and watched it, and I don't know if I watched it in a streaming service or I got it out of like a Walmart $5 bin or something like that. I really don't remember, but I know I watched it and I absolutely loved it. Not because just the style, but obviously Art, the character of Art the Clown. Oh, and by the way, if you've watched All Hallows Eve, that first scene in Terrifier 3 with the kid, it was a little more softer in your Vergigliglian, if you know what I mean. If you've seen All Hallows Eve, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's a little, oh my god. So I saw it, forgot about it, you know, moved on. And then I think like 3 years later, I was actually on Netflix of all places, and I saw Terrifier, like the first Terrifier film. And I'm like, oh, that's the same character from that other movie. And it kind of, like, you know, made me curious, so I watched it on Netflix of all places. And I was impressed and disgusted at the same time, and it was an incredible feeling as a horror fan, and it's been one of my favorite franchises ever since. You know, it's been one of my top 5s, to be honest. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this is because what I'm about to say about Terrifier 3 not only comes from a personal fan-like standpoint, but it comes from someone that's seen the series grow from what it was to what it is right now. I don't feel that I'm entitled to this opinion, but it is my opinion, so I am going to share it with you guys. I personally still think that Terrifier 2 is a better movie than Terrifier 3, and I've broken it down to four key points: characters, kills, that scene, and finally the story. And I'm leaving the story for last because it is very, very opinion based. So let's start off with the first key point: characters. Man, I think the amount of characters that we have in this film makes it like the big thing and the most popular thing that it is, because we have very good characters and very good kills in this film. I have to admit that. And going from 8 to 10 characters in the first Terrifier film to 20 to 30 characters in Terrifier 3, it's an incredible leap for what this movie has become. And even with some flaws in some of the characters' development, mainly how Sienna's aunt and her family were introduced and disposed of so quickly, and some of the dialogue being written and delivered like if we knew who these people actually were, even though I don't believe they're ever mentioned in Terrifier 2. But again, that's just like a minor thing to how good most of the characters are. Lauren as Sienna nails it, and by far is one of the best character growths that I've seen from one film to another. Like, Sienna changed just enough to where she now feels a little more smarter and strategic despite all the trauma that she's gone through. There's characters that I hate and I love when they got killed off, and Art. Art is the most violent we've ever seen him. And the simple fact that now he has a goal or a purpose of some sort just makes him feel like a truly evil being that's here to cause chaos and violence in our world. A key point that I saw was the rat and the nitrogen seed. Like, even when killing a rat, he still gets creative. He still taunts the other rats like if they were humans with the body and stuff like that. He still acts as if he was killing just a regular human. And this just shows to me that Art, or whatever entity Art has become, is just pure evil. Like, he literally sees the killing of rats as rewarding as killing a human. So that being said, I jump to my next point, which is the kills. And holy shit, every kill in this film, it's imprinted into my mind to where I can actually replay it from start to finish in my head. And you guys know I'm a big pussy when it comes to horror. I love horror, but I get scared easily. I'm a pussy. I'm stupid like that. And Terrifier 3 literally had me looking away in some of the scenes, even in my fourth watch of the film. Like, Stacy and I both watched the film together, and in some scenes we would just like turn and just stare at each other for a couple minutes because we just didn't want to watch the screen, and we would just laugh at each other because we're like, yeah, we're being fucking stupid right now, right? And by far, my favorite kill of the whole film has to go to the demolition worker with the razor of fucking... If you don't know what I'm talking about, just let me remind y'all, glass dildo. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. That's like literally on the edge of getting this video like completely canceled and deleted from YouTube. But every kill deserves its own spot as being extremely gruesome, because every kill, even the off-screen kills, are very good. And I am a big fan of practical effects, so they're a 5 out of 5. I'm not gonna say anything negative about the kills. And speaking of the kills, help me! Help me! Let's talk about that scene, the kill from that scene. But before we start, let me remind y'all, I did say that I was not going to say anything negative about the kills. So this is not negative. This is just a minor like comparison that I'm doing in my personal opinion. The scene is still gruesome. If you don't know what scene I'm talking about, let me give you like a little brief YouTube friendly like review of it. It's these two heterosexual people who are having intercourse in the shower, and Art comes, you know, in his glory with the world's most quietest chainsaw and basically tears them to pieces for about 3 to 4 minutes, and it's very gruesome. There's some splitting, there is some, but in my opinion, that scene from the second Terrifier film is a little more gruesome and more relatable. Let me explain to you all why. I'm going to use Damien Leone's own statement to make my point on why I think that the second film has a better like gruesome scene than the third film, in my opinion. By the way, major spoilers coming up. So Jonathan, Sienna's brother, is supposedly killed off-screen in Terrifier 3. And I say supposedly because it is shown kind of, but it's not confirmed that it's actually Jonathan's head inside of the birdcage. And Damien himself said that he wanted Jonathan's death to actually be an on-screen, very violent, very personal death scene because of who Jonathan was to the story. And that scene was actually going to happen in Terrifier 3, and it was going to happen right after the chainsaw scene. But Damien decided to not go with that because ultimately having two gruesome violent scenes back to back would desensitize people to a point where Jonathan's death wouldn't be as personal and meaningful as I wanted it to be. And the key word to my point is that word, desensitized. Because in my opinion, that scene from Terrifier 2 gets to a point where you're like, okay, shit, he's done so much to her, what else can he do? And as the scene starts dragging along and it starts kind of winding down, and your brain kind of turns off and you kind of, desensitized to the actual gruesome and violence that's happening on screen, the scene stops and Art just walks away. And then this motherfucker comes back with salt and a gallon of bleach and just starts seasoning this poor girl who's at this point is flamed, like she's flambed, like open, like a flaming yawn. I don't even know what the word is. Flambéed. What is that word for just flambeing a steak? Somebody, yeah, she's flambéed like a fucking flaming yawn. He's just digging the salt. It's just... Jesus, it's traumatizing. And I know I'm probably looking way too deep into this, but I also kind of relate a little more to the second scene because I personally have never been cut by a chainsaw. I hope I never do, but I've never been cut by an actual chainsaw, so I don't know what the pain of that would feel. I can only imagine it and visualize it. But I've had salt and bleach fall into like a wound or a cut, and I've felt the sting of it, and just seeing that scene and seeing how in a major scale that Stingy would feel, it's too relatable. It just gets to a point where you're like just wincing. Personally, I just wince and cringe to that scene. It's just, I've seen people get dismembered by chainsaws in other films. I've never seen actually someone get seasoned by salt and bleach after they've been mangled in any film. So that was so unique that it just made it such a perfect scene for a slasher. And my final point, the story. I'm going to keep this part very brief because I know there's a lot of mixed feelings with the actual story, and the story is not fully fleshed out as of yet. We still have like 2 more films that Damien said that he was going to put out, and that's where he was going to end it completely. So unless you start theorizing, the plot of the film is very like normal and straight to the point, but that's the charm that these Terrifier films have. Because in Terrifier 3 we get just enough for the runtime to add to the end of story, which I love what they added to it, but at the same time it felt kind of meh because, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this, everyone that I've seen the film with who is a fan of Terrifier, who's seen the second film, has the same opinion that I do once we actually get to talking to it. These films feel almost like a David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy. And don't believe me? Let me give you my key points on that. Terrifier 1 is Halloween 1978. Random serial killer terrorizes and kills a bunch of people on Halloween night. Presumed shot and killed, only to come back or be left in a cliffhanger. Terrifier 2 is Halloween 2018. A couple years later, the killer comes back to town being almost a legend. Goes against 3 female leads. The killer is presumed dead and leaves the town and its victims with PTSD. Major PTSD. And Terrifier 3 is Halloween Kills. The killer comes back again, but this time stronger and more deadlier. Main survivor of the last film falls into the path of the killer. Major characters killed off, presumably, and at the end we're left with a to be continued kind of story where the killer actually comes out on top but doesn't necessarily finish off the main character. And I'm not saying that Terrifier is a ripoff of Halloween, by far, not at all. What I'm saying is Damien Leone has a way of taking everything that made horror movies great and kind of blend it into this world that he has created with art and all these characters, and it's come out to this violent, beautiful, gruesome like trilogy of films that is excellent. And if you include the other films, obviously it's more than a trilogy, but that it's just, you know, perfect to what a slasher truly is. And personally, as a slasher movie fan, Art deserves the respect that he's getting and the hype that he's getting, and he deserves to be up there with one of the greats. And I feel that with time passing, he's going to be included and accepted by everyone. I know there's a little bit of hate for the films, but it's a slasher film, guys. We're not talking about the fucking, you know, Silent from the Lambs here, Long Legs, you know, deeply like super story. It's slasher films, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. So stop, you know, even if you don't like it, just stop. Stop being stupid. I gotta head out, guys. I gotta go to work in about 30 minutes, and I gotta wear the stupid fucking hat throughout the whole shift, and my brain feels like it's collapsing on each other. So I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna have some Chinese food for breakfast. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on social media. Watch the film. It should be out on streaming service. You know, support indie films, because this film is still an indie film. Anyways, love y'all. Use your fucking turn signals. Bye.